Evening, Chair.
So welcome to this meeting of the Finance, Regeneration and Property Scrutiny Select Committee. For the benefit of those watching on YouTube channel, members of the committee are present in the chamber and these members will be voting this evening. Other members of the council are also in attendance and or participating via MS Teams and can take part in the discussions, ask questions but cannot vote. Your attention is drawn to agenda item 1, which sets out the guidance on how meetings will be conducted, including the ground rules. Also attached for information are the terms of reference of this committee. Before we start the formal business, we'll confirm attendance of the voting members by doing a roll call.
If when I call you, you just confirm if you're present. Councillor Harman.
Present.
Councillor Mehmet.
Here.
Councillor Athol. That's okay, I've noted it now. Councillor Bishop.
Here.
Councillor Boxall.
Yep.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Cannon.
Present.
Councillor Clokey.
Present.
Councillor Mallard, I believe, is an apology. Councillor Palmer. Right. Councillor Parry. Here. Councillor Rhodes.
Present.
And Councillor Williams.
Present.
Thank you. I can confirm we had 11 voting members in the chamber this evening.
So we've already really covered apologies and notification of substitution of members. Any declarations of interest?
Not a conflict, but just for transparency, since multi-asset funds are mentioned in one of the agenda items, one of them's managed by Fidelity, who are my employers.
Thank you. Any objections to me signing the minutes for the last meeting? Right, so we will skip straight into the corporate key performance indicators at agenda item 6, and Jeremy's going to give you a brief introduction on that. So over to Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yep, okay, I think probably the emphasis will be on brief. So this report is in two parts. The first part covers the key performance indicators period April over to June 2024, so Q1. And if there are any questions on that, then I'm more than happy to field them. The other part of the report, which is under 1.2, is around proposing some of the changes to performance management, and specifically around the KPIs, which to Cabinet for consideration. For a number of you, this will be a bit of a groundhog day, I think, really, because those that were present at ONS last week, this was discussed. But just for those that weren't, just to pick up, in terms of streamlining the process, it states in 1.2.2, this proposal suggests moving from KPIs being split up and presented to ONS and the 3 Scrutiny Select Committees before going to Cabinet, towards presenting instead all the KPIs to ONS only on a quarterly basis, with Scrutiny Select Committees having an annual portfolio holder report, which will enable, hopefully, rounded scrutiny. And there is also a proposal to slim down the number of 72 to around 50, though this work is still to be done, so it could be. But welcome any questions on. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thanks, Jeremy. Bethan.
It's just regarding the 72 KPIs, I did notice it said that in it, and I was curious because we're only shown, I think, is it 17 or 18 of them, and it talks about wanting to go down to about 50. What are the ones we're not seeing?
So what happens is the suite of KPIs, all 72, are split up thematically and go to the individual scrutiny select committees and ONS at the moment. So each scrutiny committee gets a portion of those 72 before they're then cobbled back together and go to cabinet. So at the moment, for example, this committee will only get roughly a quarter of those to look at, which are related to finance, regeneration and property.
Cool. Thank you, Chair. Two points for me. On the, I think it's page 20, areas to highlight, it says at 0.17 income monitoring data is obviously in the red. It says last year it was £155,000 down below profit in Q1, but then it notes that also by the end of the year we are up 200,000. Were we down last year at the same point, that amount? What are we forecasting to be up by the end of the year? That's my first question. And my second point around exactly the same point around 72 KPIs going down to 50. Who chooses that?
I think it's probably easier for me to answer the second question first. So in terms of who would decide upon that, it would be a report, I think, ultimately that will go to cabinet. But obviously that could be looked at or called in by a scrutiny committee in terms of which ones are looked at. Ultimately, I think it wouldn't be a case of just cutting them down for the sake of it. I think what we're keen to do is to make sure that the KPIs that we have are ones that are influenced by what the council does, so and that they're meaningful, and that they align with what we're trying to do in terms of our strategy. So I think at the moment you could probably make an argument that some of those that we have don't fall within that. So I think there's a sort of acid test to be had in terms of just having a proper look at the KPIs and seeing which ones are really useful for members in terms of scrutinising the.
Jeremy, can I just jump in there and just say, look, if there are any of those KPIs that you're particularly welded to, then let us know. Then we know who wants to look at particular KPIs about whatever it happens to be you want to look at, because it may be that you're really interested in that and many other people are, but if it's important to you, maybe we can keep it in there, but we can come to that. So I don't think it's just to answer number two.
I mean, I probably don't know the exact figures. I could just quickly look up where we were this time last year in terms of then, but I not underspend in terms of income below profile. But I think it was pretty similar. I mean, this year, I think, and Sharon will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think probably planning income has been slightly lower forecast, but then sort of garden waste income has been higher, and so I think it's a little bit of a mixed picture at the moment, but I think mostly on the probably related to where we are in economy. And
I can just jump in. Yes, you're absolutely right, Jeremy. It's in fact it's on the later paper in agenda. Planning income is quite well down against budget. Yeah, it does vary and it could change, but at the moment that is the position. Garden waste is higher, or it will definitely be higher by the time we move to the next month when all the invoices have gone out. So yes, you're absolutely right, Jeremy. That's the reason.
Thank you both. Mark.
Thank you. Just referencing 11.3, in analysing the Q1 trends, members are encouraged to consider the following. Have you received any feedback from residents? No, I haven't. 2, are there any KPIs you'd like to scrutinise in more data? No, I wouldn't want to waste any more officers' time than absolutely necessary. And lastly, can I just get a reminder from Jeremy, what did we say at overview and scrutiny about KPIs going forward and their reporting timeframes?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the process potentially going forward, and it's obviously subject to the decision that the Cabinet makes, but it would be a case of the KPIs just going to overview and scrutiny to be looked at on a quarterly basis, and then they would go to Cabinet. But for the scrutiny select committees, they would receive a basis, which would incorporate some of the.
Thanks, Jeremy. Bethan.
Was just a query about 44 and the town centre vacancy levels. I just wondered how that was measured and whether, so in Tunbridge, for instance, if somewhere the size of Beals is empty, is that counted as one unit, which would be the same as a tiny little, very small shop on the high street? Are they all equal, or is it there's something?
Yeah, I mean that they are. We don't go into the sort of floor space side of things, so we count a unit as one effectively. But we have just done this, we do the survey ourselves, so we spread the high street and do the analysis ourselves, and we have just done that for this year. So without wishing to get ahead of myself, we had the overall vacancy rate at just under 6% this year, although it does vary slightly from one location to the next. So in Tunbridge, it's about 6.7% in terms of number of that are vacant in relation to the totality. Borough Green's only 1.9%, Snodland's about 5%, Smalling's just under 5%. So,
and are there any thoughts as to why these differences occur, or?
I mean, quite often it's difficult to get a sort of real trend on some of these. I mean, it can often be down to what happens with an individual landlord or what happens to an individual building in terms of condition and that side of things. But the trend seems to be gently downwards at the moment, which slightly surprises me.
Thanks, Jeremy. Tim.
Just touching on overview and scrutiny, it was brought to the request to the Bill Fox actually to send members of overview and scrutiny a full list of KPIs, and I'm sure if any other members of this committee is interested, it's available from Jill Fox, with a view that you could actually scrutiny, make a comment that perhaps this isn't quite necessary, or as the chair has said, if you're really keen on it, ask for it to stay in.
Yeah, definitely. Any views, more than welcome.
Mark Hood.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, so thank you for allowing me to speak. Obviously, KPIs offer the council the opportunity to monitor the direction of travel. It's a really useful tool, and they also allow us to have an early warning system, which I think is really valuable. And having the best possible picture of the performance of the council is essential to allow members to have proper oversight about what's happening. When this was brought up at overview scrutiny, I was concerned. I'm still concerned about reducing the number of KPIs, because it does seem a little bit like removing a load of the instruments from the cockpit of an aircraft. Why would you do it? If you've got a suite of KPIs which we've developed over the years, I get that some of them might be completely out of date, and then we've been replacing them as we go along anyway, haven't we? But it does worry me that we're going to have less of a oversight of what's going to we're not going to have a clear picture about exactly what's going on. And what really concerns me, and I didn't pick up overview and scrutiny, is are you saying that the KPIs are not going to be available at the at those scrutiny select committees every time they meet, and that we're going to, how often are we going to get the get an address from the relevant cabinet member?
So the proposal was that, yeah, the KPIs in their totality, how many that is, would go to overview and scrutiny. So there will be a paper there with everything setting out, and they wouldn't go on a quarterly basis to the scrutiny select committees, because that whole report would have gone to ONS for them to consider, and instead you would have an annual report from the portfolio setting out plans, progress, issues, and on that annual basis. That's what the.
Can I just say we've got to be a bit careful here that we're not debating something that was brought to another committee that was debated last week. This agenda item is really for information only, and I'm quite happy for us to have a talk about it, but the decision will be made at ONS on how we move forward on those KPIs. So if we can just concentrate on that's going to happen there. This is for information. I'll give you a commitment that if you let me know there are KPIs that you want to stay in, I will pass that on, and we'll see if they can stay in there. But it's not really for us to decide that. It's for ONS in the paper that's been set out there. That's my understanding.
I get that. I understand. I won't need to pass on to you because obviously I'm a member of that committee anyway. So I've been, like Councillor Bishop, I've been given that list of KPIs. It's the lack of the opportunity of members other than the members of overview and scrutiny. That they're called scrutiny select committees for a reason. They're meant to scrutinise the KPIs. They're an essential part of how any council would monitor its progress or otherwise. So that's what concerns me. What I really like is the idea of the portfolio holders coming and talking to the committee and giving us an update, especially this committee, the finance. To get an update at every meeting would be great, so that we can.
Mark, I'm not suggesting that we don't know or we shouldn't know about this, but I just, that is an ONS thing. We're on that. We can influence that. I think here this is just for information. James.
Just a couple of small questions around the format of the report more than the individual KPI contents. First, am I right in saying these are indications of the trend, whether it's improving or decreasing, rather than whether we're on or off target? It would be useful as a reader of the report to also know that, because obviously something could be solid yellow because it's performing brilliantly and it continues to perform brilliantly, and something could be terrible but slowly improving and be solid green. So it would be useful to see both somehow. And the second one was just with a thought to accessibility for those with colour vision impairment. Would it be possible to indicate these with, say, a shape as well as the colour, like a green circle, a red square, etc.? So anyone who can't see colour can still read the report, or if they're printing it in black and white or something.
Yeah, great suggestions. More than happy to look at that.
I think that's a fantastic suggestion, actually, because I must admit I looked at the papers and really had to concentrate on which shade of grey I was looking at. Okay, any other questions? So that report is to be noted. Are we happy to note that? Good call. Okay, well, in that case, we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the Customer Contact Centre Enhanced Facilities. Sharon is going to introduce.
Well, I'm going to start off, if I may, and then I was going to invite Laura French, who's online, just to talk about this within the contact centre. So just for me to start off by saying this is another step in our digital strategy, where we want to make sure we're increasing efficiency all the time, really important, but also addressing what is really increasing customer expectation and trying to help their experience of dealing with matters within the council. So that's really behind our digital strategy, why we're doing a lot of these things. So this is about web chat. Many of us do, I'm sure, individually go onto other sites, etc., and you end up in a web chat trying to find something out. At the moment, our staff, it's a human being who is actually doing the web chat, but obviously they're having to deal with that in between dealing with real telephone calls and other work. But the person may not be getting the best experience. And there is the opportunity to move forward within the context of our digital strategy with software that we've already got to actually move forward with web chat on an automated basis. What it will require is for us to purchase some additional licenses, and that's what your report is about this evening. But I was just going to invite Laura, who's obviously in charge of the contact centre, just to talk about what this actually means.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening, everyone. Yes, so we do have some automation with our switchboard already, and bringing in web chat into our telephony platform is to enhance the service that we're offering. As Sharon said, we currently offer web chat Monday to Friday in the opening hours of the council by one of my team. They are doing that in between. They are delivering calls on for our multiple services that we deliver, whether that's or face-to-face. So it is a juggle for them. And also it does mean that there can be a delay in us answering web chat comments and queries. One of the reasons to deliver the enhanced service and to bring in the web chat is actually we can use some automation to support our acknowledgement of web chats and also direct people around the website that actually now currently takes up an advisor post. So it can support the service and deliver quick inquiries quite efficiently and effectively without the use of an advisor that allows them to do other more technical roles. It will enhance the timing that we're offering. So obviously when an advisor goes home, we have to turn off web chat. Bringing in the automation will allow us to deliver that 24/7 on the website. We're very clear that what we don't want is this to feel as automated as it should be. We want it to ensure that it's an enhancement to our service. And so there will be a very soft touch to this. And residents using the service will have the ability to understand that they're being supported through automation, but then a get out in terms of an advisor that can support them, and obviously within the 9 to 5 operation that we have. So it's an enhancement, not a replacement of what we want to deliver.
Thank you. Any questions? James, I saw you first.
Just a couple of questions. I think this is great. Just looking at point 152, that we'll need some third-party support to help with integration with the back end. I understand that. Are we trying to make sure that we're picking up the relevant skills so that we're self-sufficient in managing change if we need to make any further updates to the API integration, etc., so we don't have to keep bringing in outside support? And the second question, in terms of the external provider who's providing this, does any of the information that goes into this go to the provider and then get used to train their model subsequently? And have we got appropriate coverage for data protection, sensitive data on that?
I'm going to deal with the first one and think about the second one. It's a bit more tricky, that one. The good news on the first question is that since we wrote this, the business case, and if you look at the business case, the words in the report came out of the business case, our staff have been trained. So we've kind of we've already moved on since we wrote the business case. So we won't need to get any third-party support at all. Great. So I did check that earlier, following a question you raised at the pre-meet. So that's good. The second question, can you say it again, please? I don't know if between Laura and I we can try and answer it.
So my question is what, when you type into the web chat, is what you're typing shared with the vendor, and do they use it to train their AI model to support the web chat, or is that contained to us? I'm just thinking from a data protection standpoint.
Sharon, shall I respond to that one? So I would refer to some of the information we had from Ganesh, who's head of IT. Our platform, along with our telephony, all sits on a secure platform. So it is entirely secure to us. They have no access within that. It's resilient. So I would say there is no risk of breach of data. It is within entirely our flow and our system that sits within our secure platform. So it is not accessible to a third party or the provider.
Thank you.
Ethan.
I just had a couple of queries. One relates to how we deal with things at the moment. I saw that it said that we currently have 1,100 to 1,300 web chats per month at the moment. And I understand that this is done manually by a physical person, people, rather than the automated thing. But that's just me, and I'm clearly very old-fashioned. I see this as the way forward. But I'm wondering whether they're all satisfactorily completed at the moment, whether the advisors that are manually doing this are able to, or whether a proportion of them, that, you know, the 1,100 to 1,300 includes a proportion that are dropped because they're not answered within the time, and therefore it would be a great advantage having the automated service, because presumably some of them are quite straightforward and could be answered quite easily by a bot instead. And the other one was this idea that this takes up an advisor at the moment to deal with these manually. Is the long-term view to try and cut down the number of advisors?
I'm going to answer one of those questions before anybody else does, because I've tried to use our online web chat, and each time I've used it, there have been some substantial gaps between me typing in a question and I get a response. And each time there is an apology for it taking so long. And I've got what I needed to get, but it has taken an awful long time. And if you know the system, you don't give up. But if you don't know the system, you'd be very, very tempted to give up. So I think this is a fantastic enhancement.
So that means that the 1,100 to 1,300 includes, that's how many are initiated or how many go to completion?
I'm not sure. Laura, can you answer that?
Yes. So they're all answered chats. There is a table there for missed chats, but they're all answered. But against their satisfaction, that's what we can't measure at the moment. So our current web chat system, its reporting is quite basic. So we have very little data from it, and that information that you get is pretty much all I can get from it. Part of the putting it into our platform is about distribution of chats. So at the moment, hence the delay, an advisor can start a chat and then they'll have to take a call, so that chat gets slightly sidestepped. What happens with the new platform is that, or our current platform, is that will be fed like a call. So the distribution will be more efficient. If the automation can't deal with it, and hopefully the automation, once it's gathered and it's trained to do so, can deliver quite a lot. But actually, if that chat needs to come out and go to an advisor, that will be automated and it will go to an advisor that's free. So the process should be smoother. The support to that person who wants to talk to us, chat to us, should be far more efficient. Does
Lovely.
that help?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mark.
Chairman, thank you. Having been on the council a number of years, in the old days, we used to have the Information Technology Board Committee and also the Information Technology Advisory and panel. We would have got a demonstration of this, Chairman, in the old days, and it's a shame, personally, I think, that we haven't got a demonstration now. So I've got one question. What is the point of having the bot 24 hours when you type in, I want to talk to someone at 3 in the morning, it says, contact the council in the morning?
I have to agree. It would have been nice to see a demonstration, but we haven't got one. And I think nobody's expecting to talk to somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning. But it is important that if you press the "I want to talk to somebody" button, that there is a person at the end of the phone and perhaps some idea of how long that's going to take. And I don't know whether that's integrated into the system.
So we don't, what we don't do is give an expected wait time on our phones, purely because it doesn't really provide a realistic time. It'll look at what the average is for that moment. But if a call takes another half an hour because we're resolving something complex, that will skew the information that comes out of it. So in the same context, it's very hard to predict what a wait time will be when something comes through. Different services, different systems do look at it, and they don't tend to do that, and it can be very skewed.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. I'll take Paul first and then come back to you, Bethan.
Cool, thank you, Chair. Look, I rolled one of these out of work and they're massively successful. I think the key in this, as always, is the mapping of the bot, so where it takes you on the website. And that's the key thing. And also, when you want to talk to someone and you're out of hours, it then tells you that when you can actually call and there's a number or there's the emergency number, etc. So the mapping of it is key. The other bit that we may need to look at is our website to make sure that actually the content is correct when we direct someone there so they get the answer they want. But in principle, I think this is a much needed move on, as long as there is also that fail-safe to a person during operating hours. Never forget the human touch is most important. But from a bot point of view, I don't particularly need to see it because I think it needs to be mapped correctly, and then it needs to be, I suppose, try to be broken once we put it in the sandbox and try using it, I would say, to make sure that every link is directed to the right point. But otherwise, I'm full support. I think it's a good move.
Thanks, Paul. Bethan.
Sorry, I'm just remember. I was just curious as to, do we know why people use the web chat now? Is it because the call times are because they don't want to wait for a call and it's offered to them instead, or is it the first thing that's sort of like if you go on the internet, that's what you're offered? I mean, what's making people use and what are our call times generally like, our waiting times?
So web chat, in terms of we have very little. I mean, I can talk to the team about what's delivered through web chat. It's very directional. They might not find something on the website which we feed back, or they can't remember their login to their My Account. So there's varying levels. Some try to interact with us in terms of their council tax account, which we would then direct them to the phone, because we can't resolve through web chat complex inquiries. So it can be a mixed bag, but a lot of it is supporting, directing. They can't find something on our website, and it actually might be a KCC service or a Clarion service. So it is quite directional. Once we have it in the platform, we can drill down and get a lot more data as to why people are asking us for information, why they're asking for help, which we can feed into the website team and get an enhanced, improved website whilst we're at it. At times of call times, that can go from, we were discussing this today, management team, weren't we, Sharon? We can have a wait time of, what was our maximum wait time today? 30 seconds, or that can jump to Monday morning, it can be 6 to 10 minutes. It varies depending on day and pressure of service.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Well, in that case, I'll propose from the chair that recommendation the automated web chat functionality is enabled through the customer contact system, and the cost of £9,408, that's a very exact amount, for the additional AW365 licenses is funded from the Transformation Reserve. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Mark Rhodes, thank you. And are we all agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, well, we can nicely skip on to agenda item 8, which again, I'm going to ask Sharon to go through, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't proposing to go through this in any detail because it was only a couple of weeks ago that I did the same with Cabinet, and I'm sure many of you heard that and have read the report. But what I just want to focus on is a couple of things. Firstly, what the general direction travel is for the budget for the year, because there's lots of peaks and troughs and going on within the budget, but the overall position is we're in a relatively good place at the moment, but that is masking some areas that I think we have got to focus on. And the big one of those, won't be surprised when I say temporary homelessness. And, you know, I'm sure there are other meetings going on in other councils and they're saying exactly the same thing there as well, because that is one of the biggest pressures there is for district councils. The numbers of people in temporary accommodation has been increased. Yeah, I think it's sort of a little bit now. Update on that has plateaued a little bit, but it's not just about the numbers, it's about the cost. And the cost is often outside our control because we only have a limited pool of premises that are in our own control. They're ours. We can control the costs of that. The rest of it, we're reliant on the private sector to provide properties for us. And, you know, it's a market and we are charging more and more money for accommodation, which is why you as a council decided that you wish to try and, shall we say, create some of our own TA, more of our own. I've got some, but more of our own. But that is work in progress. It doesn't happen overnight. No. So all the time, the numbers are as they are, and the costs, private sector, are as they are. Costs to us, bottom line, is going to be significant. So I have to say that I think that is one of the biggest pressures we have. It is. Fortunately, this is being countered by good investment returns on our treasury funds, because rates stayed higher than we expected when we set the budget. We thought they'd have dipped much more by now, but they haven't. I think the market said by the end of the year they will have dipped, but you know, we wait and see. But for now, we're actually getting good returns on our investments, and that is definitely. But we can't rely on that. That's the problem. Rates will come down. We will spend our money. You know, plans as a council. You have plans as. You know, we will be spending the money that we got. Therefore, we won't have the same amount to invest and earn the interest. So whilst it's looking okay, I think I just want to throw in that very big note of caution. We really have got costs of, and the wish we could address the causes of temporary accommodation. We need to certainly looking at how we prevent home as best we can. We're not going to be all. much as we can do. So that was the note of caution. In terms of saving, and not in your report here, Chairman, but next time, your next meeting will be jam-packed with financial items, because next time you will get an update of the medium-term financial strategy following that, because we're now working on a new iteration. But based on where we are right now with the MTF have and the savings targets that itself, good news is you're ahead of the game as of today, which is good. However, we can't take our foot off the gas, because there is still a long way to go in the journey to the other end. So we've kind of gained something. We've gained a bit of acceleration, but we've got to be careful forward. And I am certain, because it always does, the goalposts will move. They will move. And hoping that by the time I come back to you in December, you'll have a better how those posts have moved. Our new focus. So that's all I wanted to say. And I know it's not all about sport. I'm happy to attempt to answer questions. I don't have my sidekicks with me this evening. There was quite a lot of questions. Cabinet item. But happy to now.
Thanks, Sharon. Bethan, just before I come to you, there is a a note at 1.10.8 in here about any suggestions for further savings. Can I just ask that rather than we discuss them, they are emailed through and look at those. But anyway, Bethan, sorry, back to you.
Thanks very much. I think this is enormously positive. I mean, to have achieved, to have exceeded this 305,000, 100,000 aim by such a significant amount is wonderful. I was just wondering that the lion's share of this seems to obviously is coming from the increase in parking charges, the 500,000. And I know this has been a very hotly contended issue by, if you follow any Facebook at all, that it's still very much discussed out there. But I'm wondering, from our point of view, I'm assuming that this will be something that we're monitoring. When will we start to see any feedback for how close we are to this anticipated 500,000 increase, and whether we're, where we are in relation to that?
So I need to take that back and ask the director who's in charge of parking to look at that. The informal feedback I've had is that things are pretty well on the ground. But it is early days, isn't it? Because it only came in August. So I think we need a bit more data before we can give you any formal feedback. But certainly there's no reason why we can't try and address some of that at the report to November meeting and try and take that on board.
Sharon, anybody else? Rob?
Just on the temporary accommodation, are you able to say or outline the reasons for the increase and whether you think it will continue for the foreseeable future? I know that's a question for you or someone else perhaps, but thank you.
From a financial point of view, it's two things, and what's behind that is not really my domain, but it is numbers. People who are presenting to us, homeless, and the cost of the accommodation itself. In the process, you have obviously prevention right at the start, prevent people actually coming to the office and I am homeless. You need to try and address that beforehand, which is not as easy as it sounds. The housing team do a fantastic job of trying to do that. A lot of the, I was hearing this all hot off the press and in my mind. The most common reasons at the moment for new cases forward are young people who are being asked to leave their family home. For whatever reason, that arguments or what the team are now having to try and do, talk to the parents to try and keep those young people in the family home, because otherwise they're presenting themselves as homeless to us. We have to decide whether we have a duty. And if we do, there is a cost. So whilst we do charge people who are come to us and we charge them rent, onto the best word, it is not full cost that accommodation. So obviously the more cases you have, the more cost there is to Tunbridge and Mourning Borough Council. So logically, the less cases you have, the less cost there will be to Tunbridge and Mourning. But coupled with that is the actual providers who we're sending these to keep charging us more and more their accommodation, because they can, because there's a market. Everyone is clamouring for units to put people in. They're being sent down from London. London boroughs are buying up. It's becoming very, very difficult. Reasonable rate, which is why it's got to be a strategy to have more of our own, that is in our own control, in our own. I don't know if Kim wanted to add anything far more au fait with this than I am.
Go for it, Kim.
Thank you. What Sharon said is absolutely right. A lot of the people presenting themselves to us for temporary accommodation are the young people, and our homelessness prevention team have already done so much with so many of these in keeping them in the family home. But we've got quite a few coming to us at the moment where mum and dad are just at the end of their tether, and they're pretty much landing in our lap. And some we have a duty of care to, some we don't. Another large portion of the people coming to us are those victims of domestic abuse. And the problem we have is if people are escaping from a domestic relationship where they've been abused, they can come to us from any borough. If they land in Tunbridge and Mourning asking for help, we have to take them in. We have to provide them with a roof over their head, regardless of where they come from. So that's also quite difficult. But also on top of that, you've got the cost of living situation where people are struggling. Cost of accommodation in our borough is exceptionally high. So there are a whole host of reasons why our TA numbers have gone up, and Sharon's quite right, they have sort of plateaued at the moment. I think we're around the 146, 150 mark, and it changes every day. But to mitigate that, what we need to do is we've already started, but we need to establish more properties that we own ourselves, and that might be modular housing, it might be buying properties on the open market. However we do it, we do need to push forward with that. It's absolutely vital. But also, we're looking to enhance our incentive scheme with local landlords. So hopefully, we will be an attractive proposition to them. We're looking at possibly offering to pay for repairs if that's the issue with them, or providing them with a monetary deposit to get people into place, into a permanent home. So that's something else we're looking at, but it's really, really difficult. And the final thing I would say is with regard to TA is that we need to possibly try and move people on more quickly. And obviously the things I've just mentioned will help in doing that. But as unpopular as it might be, sometimes, we've got to encourage people to help themselves. And it's possible that we might have to start placing outside of borough a bit more because it's cheaper. And we also might have to, we're very compassionate here, council, but we might have to start placing people in areas that are not so nice. And that's how it is, I'm afraid. It's not a nice decision to have to make, but I think that's where we're going to have to go, because we just can't afford to carry on as we are.
Can I just ask, we got an average time that people are in temporary accommodation?
We haven't. It's a massive, there's a massive spectrum of say a few weeks to, I think our longest is nearly 3, maybe slightly over 3. So there is a massive spectrum.
I don't think my eyes can go any wider.
That's a very complex case, the 3-year case, and it's not easy to place that family into other accommodation. The team are working really hard to do that, but it's not easy. So, there is a whole range of timescales.
Okay, just again, purely, I think this one's purely out of interest, but the difference between what we're spending on temporary accommodation and what we're charging, that's what's represented by that 665,000. So it's a net figure.
That's a net figure. Yeah. Because we do claim back housing benefit and such like to compensate.
Mark Rhodes.
Chairman, thank you. I was only going to make a comment. Earlier on, Sharon said that we are ahead of the game. We are only ahead of the game because of Sharon and her excellent team. We all need to be mindful of that and thankful. Thank you, Chair.
Here. Mark.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm still not a member of your committee.
I'd
like to add my compliments, actually, because I think this report is extremely well written, and it's the detail and the clarity is really, really helpful for members. It's really accessible for members and residents if they want to have a look at this. It's really interesting to see the huge contributions that have been made to tackle that £1.7 million shortfall, and to see it all laid out is great. Looking at the projected 665,000 overspend on TA, obviously we've covered this at length, and I've also suggested, I know that you said, can we send in emails? I've got a suggestion that I've already passed on to Kim. We've got a large building on the corner of Avery Avenue and River Lawn Road, and construction has stalled. And I've been talking to the team there, our team, our enforcement team, about this. And I think that there's a great opportunity there to potentially snap up a building which hasn't been fully developed, and then be able to modify it for our own needs as far as temporary accommodation goes. That could be exactly what we're looking for. And it's good to see that this is being tackled in a holistic way by the wider temporary accommodation policy. Can I just ask some questions about Annex 3? These are probably not for this meeting. They'll probably have to be taken away and brought back again. It's just the figures for Tunbridge Cemetery suggest that perhaps we've got the pricing a little bit wrong, because we're getting less than we thought we would be getting. We put the charges up by 90%. We bought all the charges for most things, but this seems to indicate that maybe we have got this slightly wrong, and that people are actually using other facilities. So I wondered if we could. That might be worth
suggesting that they're dying elsewhere.
I don't think. No, I think it's the trouble is those hearses, they can go in all directions. So I think that's the thing. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. I think Kim can probably answer some of those, or one of those questions, or at least help to shed a bit of light onto it. So back to Kim.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you to Mark for his suggestion, because we have been looking at it for that particular building for quite some time, because Mark highlighted that, well, was it a few months ago, I think, yeah. I have mentioned to Eleanor and Linda about that building, and they have made inquiries, and they're led to believe that construction is due to commence again imminently, because they do have plans for it. But all I can undertake is that we'll keep our eye on it, and I'd like you to keep me informed as well as you see what's going on, Mark, please. Thank you.
Tim.
Thank you again, Chair. Yes, I'm following Mark's comments. It is a very useful report for us. And it's also very pleasing to see at last that the valuation officer has got Panattoni, at least with Amazon, under his belt. Goes back to October, but that would be a welcome influx of funds. It's just frustrating that buildings are taking not that long to put up, but the valuation officer seems to be able to drag his heels. Frustrating for local authorities. We are the recipient of that. Yeah. I see if somebody, government, could get some staff down there.
Thanks, Tim. If there's nobody else, are we all happy to note this report? Much. Okay, we don't have an agenda item 9, but we do have an agenda item 10, which is essentially the, oh, do we? Oh, okay, so that, yes, that's the, those, if we, okay, agenda item 10, which is the upcoming matters. You'll see that there's a number of items that are going to be on the November thing. Commercial there. We don't have an 11 or a 12. I think we can close the meeting at 8:28. Thank you very much for your attendance.